Do you ever get that feeling where you're just constantly rushing, like you're chronically exhausted, but somehow still falling behind? Yeah, me too. And if your brain feels totally fried by the time evening rolls around, but you still find yourself lying in bed doom scrolling, listen, you are definitely not alone. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack the actual science behind all this modern exhaustion and, much more importantly, figure out how we can actively reclaim our time and our minds. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's take a quick look at our cognitive roadmap for today. We'll be covering the fast-paced culture trap, hijacking the brain's rewards, the willpower depletion debate, the power of patience, the slow motion trick, and finally, reclaiming your digital freedom. Starting us off with Section 1, the fast-paced culture trap. Now, before we look inward at our own brains, we kind of have to zoom out and look at the macro-level cultural trap we're all living in. Take a look at this number, 144. Guys, that is the staggering number of times the average American checks their phone every single day, 144 times. And alongside that, we're averaging over 4.5 hours of screen time daily. We are completely tethered to our devices, feeling this intense, constant pressure to respond, react, and consume at just absolute breakneck speed. But here's the thing. This rushed, clock-obsessed reality we live in, it's just one cultural way to live. It is not an absolute biological necessity. In fact, cultures generally fall into two different categories of time orientation. You've got monochronic cultures, like the US and Northern Europe, where time is strictly measured by the clock. It's super fast-paced, time is money. But then you have polychronic cultures, like those in Latin America and the Middle East, where time is viewed as event-based and fluid. They actually prioritize relationships over rigid schedules. Wild, right? So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that we are pushing our biology to do something it simply wasn't designed to do. As the author Cal Newport so brilliantly puts it, we are not wired to be constantly wired. Behind our screens, there are highly intelligent designers literally engineering these platforms to capture our attention. Our biology is fighting a massive uphill battle against an environment it was never, ever built for. Which brings us to Section 2, hijacking the brain's rewards. Let's dive into how this actually alters the physical structure of our brains and why we end up feeling so totally out of control. Deep inside your head is a network called the mesolimbic dopamine pathway. Now, usually this pathway works beautifully. It reinforces survival behaviors, things like eating a good meal or socializing, by releasing dopamine, which, let's be honest, feels great. But modern tech completely manipulates this system using something called variable reinforcement. Every time you refresh your feed, you don't really know what you're going to get. It's the exact same psychological mechanism used in slot machines, and it just throws our reward system into absolute overdrive. Let's contrast these two types of inputs. Natural rewards, like, say, going for a walk with a friend, activate your brain's reward system in a sustainable, heavily regulated way. But artificial stimuli, like those endless digital notifications pinging your phone, trigger these massive, unnatural dopamine surges. And over time, to protect itself from this crazy flood of chemicals, your brain actually reduces its natural dopamine production and dulls its receptor sensitivity, which basically means the normal, everyday joys of life actually start to feel kind of boring. And this leads directly into a very well-documented biological addiction cycle. It goes like this. Step 1 is the binge. That's where you get that massive dopamine hit from scrolling. Step 2 is withdrawal. When you finally put the phone down, your dopamine levels drop below baseline, which actually causes genuine anxiety and distress. Then comes Step 3. Preoccupation. This is where your prefrontal cortex, the part that handles your impulse control, gets compromised, leading you right back to Step 1. I really want to normalize this struggle for you right now. If you can't stop scrolling, it is driven by profound neurobiology. It is absolutely not a simple moral failing. Moving on to Section 3, the willpower depletion debate. Now that we understand that addiction cycle, we have to look at why it's so unbelievably hard to just put the phone down and walk away. This is actually a huge debate in psychology right now. Is willpower a limited resource? Think about it. If you spend your entire workday resisting the urge to check your email, do you just sort of run out of energy to resist junk food or social media later that night? Well, for years, the ego depletion theory told us that, yeah, willpower was basically like a gas tank that simply empties out. But modern neuroscience is offering us a really fascinating and honestly hopeful alternative. It's called the two gears theory. This suggests our brains don't actually run on empty. Instead, they adaptively shift gears. So after a long period in a rigid, goal-oriented, persistent gear, your brain naturally shifts into a flexible, open state. It's not that you have zero willpower left. It's just that your brain is trying to change its processing style. Pretty cool, right? Okay, Section 4, the power of patience. So, how do we actually manage these cognitive gears and break this cycle of feeling constantly rushed? We need to pivot from staring at the problem to focusing on active, daily solutions. Psychology identifies 3 distinct types of patience that we can actively cultivate. First, there's interpersonal patience, that's your tolerance with other people. Then hardship patience, your ability to endure serious, heavy life challenges. And finally, daily patience, which is how you handle those minor annoyances, like sitting in bad traffic or waiting on a slow internet connection. And here's the kicker. Research shows that actively practicing all 3 types leads to significantly higher life satisfaction, much better emotional regulation, and even lower rates of depression. I want you to think of patience not as some magical trait you either have or you don't, but as a muscle. And just like any muscle in your body, it actually requires resistance to grow stronger. When you find yourself in a super frustrating situation, if you can just intentionally pause before you react, it physically calms your nervous system. Embracing that temporary, itchy discomfort instead of instantly fleeing to your phone for a quick distraction is exactly how you build deep emotional resilience. Let's look at section 5, the slow motion trick. We can actually train this patience muscle using a highly effective technique. The trick is incredibly simple. Purposefully perform mundane, everyday tasks slower. Take your morning routine, walking to your car, or eating. Instead of inhaling your breakfast in 30 seconds flat, intentionally drop your speed. By deliberately slowing down these everyday activities, you're literally signaling to your nervous system, hey, we are safe. This lowers your stress hormones, dramatically improves your memory and focus, and creates that much-needed mental space to actually boost your creativity. And the absolute best part about this, you do not need a massive life overhaul or some expensive silent retreat to get these benefits. You can just use something called micro-slowing. These are tiny, punchy interventions that immediately reset your focus. For instance, try implementing a simple 5-second pause. Literally just take 5 deep breaths before firing back a reply to a frustrating email. Or try the half-speed challenge. Pick one single task, like brushing your teeth or drinking your morning coffee, and do it at exactly half your normal speed. I know it sounds crazy, but it is remarkably grounding. And finally, section 6, reclaiming your digital freedom. Let's zoom back out and apply this slow, patient, deliberate mindset directly to the devices that accelerated our culture in the first place. Here are top strategies for digital minimalism to help you optimize your online time. First up, keep your mornings quiet. Do not let a screen dictate your very first thoughts of the day. Second, consolidate your texting. Try putting your phone on Do Not Disturb and scheduling specific times to reply. It makes your messages way more deliberate. And third, rethink your email triggers. Remove the app from your home screen or turn off the push notifications entirely. You've got to put vital space between the stimulus and your response. Now, I really want to reassure you, the damage from our fast-paced, digitally addicted culture, it is absolutely not permanent. Thanks to neuroplasticity, which is the brain's superpower to reorganize and adapt itself, you can heal. By stepping back from constant artificial stimuli, your dopamine receptors will naturally recalibrate. Your brain will literally rewire itself, allowing you to rediscover that profound joy in natural, everyday rewards once again. We've covered the cultural traps, the brain's biology, and the practical tools of patience and microslowing. Now, to wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final empowering question to think about. What single activity will you choose to slow down or disconnect from today? Your cognitive freedom is entirely in your hands, just waiting to be reclaimed, one slow, patient moment at a time.